It's been 30 years since the formation of South Africa's national football team, Banyana Banyana. But their equal status in the soccer world remains a thorny issue, especially when compared to the treatment received by their male counterparts, Bafana Bafana. Good evening, my name is Sizwe Mpofu Walsh. As stakeholders are finding ways to resolve the impasse, following this Sunday's international embarrassment when Banyana protested demanding equitable and fair treatment, we ask, does SAFA take gender equality seriously? Our guests this evening are former Banyana Banyana player Portia Modise, who joins us later, and the former SAFA Vice-President Ria Ledwaba. They're joining us on Zoom. We're also going to be speaking later in our program to SABC Senior Sports journalist Velile Mnyandu. We extended an invitation to SAFA, but they declined. To join in this discussion, please tweet using @Unfiltered SABC. Before we embark on our discussion, let's watch the scene setter compiled by Skangiwe Mtiani.
You are bullying these players. These are the No, we are not bullying them.
Tired of enduring many years of unfavorable working conditions, South Africa's women's national team, Banyana Banyana, had reached the end of their tether when they boycotted the preparatory game against Botswana on Sunday. A match that was supposed to be a send-off before heading to the FIFA Women's World Cup disintegrated into a list of embarrassing spectacles for the South African Football Association, which saw the makeshift team that replaced them lose 5-0 and the matter grabbing international headlines. It exposed the questionable contracts the players were given, the substandard Tsakani pitch that is not accredited for professional games, and raised many concerns about how the Botswana team, ranked 150, could be an effective opponent to prepare for the World Cup.
We wanted this to be a send-off match, and we could not, having written several letters to other international member associations, we wanted a team that would come to South Africa and on a fixture in South Africa, not for the team to go overseas. Unfortunately, no one came with a positive response because they felt this was outside the FIFA international break. Some of them asked us to cover their flight costs. Unfortunately, we did not have that in our budget.
Once again, the matter brought to the fore the long-standing concern about the unequal treatment of women football players compared to the treatment afforded to the male national soccer team Bafana Bafana, which frequently trains in top-notch facilities, often located in or near major cities.
It's not even about the generation today. It's about the generation and the generation and the generation. They need to be in a better conditions. So I'm just saying to my girls, it's about teamwork. We have a CEO yentombazana, sine coach yentombazana. Mamelani, stand tall. It's about time manje ukuthi amahlathi ashile manje. Ekanokuqasha manje. Tell the truth so the country could help. I never had a problem with you, but it's time to stand up. Don't betray your players. Stand your loyalty, show your loyalty. They gave you trophies, they gave you their loyalty. Mamela, stand up manje. It's about time.
Following their much-celebrated win of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations last year, the team met with President Cyril Ramaphosa, who acknowledged the need for their equal treatment.
I do believe that you deserve much more than what you deserve equal pay for equal work that you do. Now, I've been told that you get 10 times less than what the men get when they play. And that has to come to an end.
For many years, concerns have been raised about the general welfare of women soccer players and the impact the unequal treatment has on development. Last year, SAFA launched its Vision 22, in which, among others, it committed to strengthening women football and achieving gender equality. as the team is set to play a final warm-up match against Costa Rica just a few days before their opening World Cup match against Sweden on the 23rd this month. Banyana Banyana have reiterated their commitment to the team, but hope that going forward, their contribution to the national pride will be acknowledged 30 years after its formation. Was this weekend's protest a turning point for women's football in South Africa? For Unfiltered, I'm Skangu Mtiani.
Welcome back. Ms. Modise, you're a legendary player, someone who's been very vocal. Can you share with us some of your experiences of inequality that have led you to be so outspoken about the gaps between women and men's sports, especially soccer in South Africa?
Sanbunan.
Sanbunan.
I just want to say, see, whatever that the girls are waiting for, it's time to change, man. I believe which I don't even have an energy, to really go back and remind people what I've been saying about the gender equality. Also, the gap of treatment for women's football. It was never acceptable. It's so unfortunate, Luguti. We were always overpowered, to really voice out the way we voice out. There will always be someone who will come and say, these girls are not telling the truth, are telling lies. That is why today, we're still having this situation. But if people, they face the truth then and try not to be in denial of the situation and try to be fair, not to be greedy and selfish, I'm sure by now, we're going to be in a good place with women's football.
Did you feel like your voice was silenced when you raised it all those years ago?
Mamela, I was even kicked out from the team. I didn't retire because I wanted to retire. I retired because I was vocal. People, they couldn't stand me. Then they made my life very difficult. And they told me, if I don't retire now, they're not going to make a farewell game for me. So I decided, Gucci, let me retire. I'm still waiting for that farewell game even now. So I was silenced just because my mama, I knew which I was talented and I knew which I worked hard for my achievement. No one did a favor for me. From coming from this condition that I was coming from, in the poor background, I knew what I was playing for. I wanted to change where I was staying. So people, they never understood or we deserve the respect that Bafana Bafana gets. Sometimes we didn't want to be like Bafana Bafana. We were just saying, in 100%, give us 70 so we can maintain ourselves as athletes. But they didn't listen to that. Instead, they closed doors for us.
Ms. Ledwaba, you've been on the inside of SAFA. You've played a major role in South Africa's sporting and soccer landscape. What was your reaction to the recent events and the refusal of Banyana Banyana players to take to the pitch in that so-called send-off friendly?
Well, it was an embarrassing moment for the country. I think it's something that should not have happened if matters have been dealt with amicably. And also, I think what is important is when did Banyana Banyana qualify for the World Cup? They've qualified for the World Cup when they won the AFCON. From that time until 2 days or 3 days before they are going to leave the country to represent us, we are still talking about their contract. So it is really embarrassing. You ask yourself, or the girls, they are our glory, the pride of the country currently. They are doing very well. They've come back with a trophy, but they still talking about their contract just a week before they leave for the World Cup.
What kinds of things within SAFA did you see that you may be able to give us insight into these contractual disputes? What's behind the lack of pay and these long-going disputes?
I think I can answer that by saying the reason why the women players have taken a route of a petition to FIFA to say, can we have a breakdown of the prize money must come directly to the players. And that's why they got that from FIFA. FIFA has given them that. And the girls, they know that. They know that FIFA has given them $30,000 each player. It is categorized under the payment for players. It's not categorized under the federation. So it's very clear what FIFA has put to all federations to say each player will receive, which is 540,000 with $18,000 as we speak today. So that's a guaranteed amount. It's not SAFA money. That's FIFA money, guaranteed from FIFA. Then SAFA gets preparation money to prepare the team. As we speak today, do we believe that this team prepared themselves? With the funds that FIFA has sent to South African Football Association to prepare the team, we are told we couldn't go to Bombela Stadium because we didn't have the funds. What happened to the funds that were given to the federation for the preparation?
Absolutely. Mr. Mnyandu, firstly, how do you respond to some of the insights that we've heard? And also, can you distill what the core grievances are that we saw leading to the stay away, as it were, of players in that send-off friendly?
Firstly, I cannot respond because I don't represent SAFA. And
what are your thoughts as a person?
Yeah, but I think these are valid concerns, and also these are the kind of stories that we've been dealing with over the past few weeks, but especially this past weekend. In fact, there's even another angle I would like to hear from Ria, because I think before we come to the money part, and also one of the primary concerns that led to the team boycotting or not playing was also the state of the pitch. And from my understanding, the Limpopo Sports Confederation had offered to host that match. And this is a critical part, maybe before we go forward, that Ria can help us, because my understanding was that the team, in fact, was supposed to have been in Polokwane, I think, on the 29th. And so there was this setting that this is going to be at a World Cup venue, Peter Mokaba Stadium, and there will be this ambience of a proper send-off for African champions, not just anyone. Yeah. You know, because I am the one who raised the issue this past weekend, and everyone was running with it, that this particular venue that the team was playing at, a game that was only confirmed in terms of the opposition and also the venue 4 days before the game. Now, you want to get people to get to that game, but it was only confirmed 4 days before the game in terms of the information out there. And this is the venue that was banned on 2 occasions this past season from hosting matches of Motsepe Foundation Championship, which is the National First Division. And now we are taking an international match, African champions, the team that is heading to the World Cup. And we've seen in football, I mean, we were here when Orlando Pirates goalkeeper Richard Ofori got injured in an MTN 8 Cup final. And the following day or 2 days later, he was supposed to be flying to the World Cup, got injured out of the tournament. So these things happen. So now when you take this game to a venue like that, so that's why I think before we go forward, because I would like Ria, because I didn't get the side of the Limpopo Sports Confederation, but I did speak to SAFA about this. What happened in that space?
Ms. Ledwaba, can we put that to you just for any clarification? But also, I guess this is a question of both the symbolic aspects of respect and the pitch, but also tangible aspects of pay, and it's those two things which seem to be going together in this dispute and in the grievances that players are raising.
Yeah, well, Velile, that is true. It was this farewell game of Banyana Banyana was Limpopo's first confederation's idea. That was sent officially to SAFA last year. I think between October and November, or between July and October, that we were in writing. We requested that we would want to give Banyana Banyana a good farewell game at Peter Mokaba Stadium. We consulted with all the municipalities in Limpopo. They were prepared to bus the fans to the stadium. We had sponsors that were on board to come on board with this. And I remember the last meeting, because our idea was an international game. We wanted one of the best countries to come and play in Limpopo. But then we were told later that SAFA is unable to get any team from overseas. They want the game to be played there. Then in our last meeting, I think in May, we were then told that the game that will be brought to Limpopo is Botswana. Well, I know Botswana personally. I've been a match commissioner of their games. I know they are not a bad team. They've beaten, remember, during the Olympic, they took South Africa out
in the qualifiers,
of the Olympic. Yes, so they are not really bad. It was a game that we could accept in Limpopo. But, you know, what really hurt us at Limpopo Sports Confederation, it's non-committal by SAFA. At the end of that meeting, no formal response to say to us they're cancelling them. We just heard from grapevines that the game is not coming to Limpopo. The game is going to be played at Dobsonville Stadium. And we were very, very disappointed as the province, because we were ready, the province was ready to give these girls, and especially that we had almost about 5 girls that played in that Africa Cup of Nations.
Were you given any reasons for that change?
I'm sorry?
Were you given any reasons for the change in venue?
There was not even a courtesy of an official letter by SAFA to say to Limpopo Sports Confederation, we are unable to bring the team to Limpopo. We just got a message from rumors out there that the game is not coming. While we had a meeting where in that meeting, the meeting was represented by the provincial secretary of SAFA, that was representing SAFA in that meeting. But unfortunately, these are the things that happened. And when we saw that the game is going to be played at that particular stadium, when these champions are going to play in those world-class stadiums, and South Africa have world-class stadiums. You ask yourself, why wouldn't this game be taken to some stadiums that are world-class? Because we do have those stadiums.
Let me bring in Ms. Modise. I'll come to you, Mr. Mnyandu. Ms. Modise, you are nodding your head in terms of the questions of some symbolism, but also pay and respect. But you've also recently said that more players and even the coach need to use this moment to speak out, difficult as it is. Do you believe that players and the coach, Desiree Ellis, have said enough about these issues? And why are you calling for them specifically to speak out more loudly?
I believe Gucci, the coach, could make it also a different. He was once a former player of Banyana Banyana. He also accounted problems. They were the first one laid the foundation for me, and I played with them. And we also had problems while Gezi was still playing. And I felt Gucci winning the Africa Cup of Nations. I think that trophy, that was our voice to make sure to lock everything and to make sure Gucci. Even the president that they make sure Gucci announces Gucci our women national team is gonna be getting a gender equality. The way guys get paid, our ladies, they will get paid the same. Because I believe that moment, that was the moment to announce that there is no other moment. Because once you miss that, our country, they are quick to forget the critical issues. So I knew if we miss that moment where the president was there and the minister and the SAFA president, I believe Gutierrez was supposed to use that opportunity to vent out. He's been working under conditions that are not really comfortable, even for her. As much as he wants to save the job. But I think the country is behind them right now. They just have to vent out, and say whatever that they've been going through. I believe Gucci just received an award from the president, and whatever that is gonna say, the country will be behind Desiree. He's a coach of champions. After 1994, this is us now. It's our time. And the girls, they've been talking with their performances. We used to do that. For a fact, with these girls brought this Africa Cup of Nations. It's funny. Because while we were playing, we thought there was a time while we were playing, we thought if we can win the Africa Cup of Nations and bring something home, that's when we will get a gender equality. That's when we'll get a professional league. But I'm seeing these girls having this and they're still struggling. Right. It's painful. And while there's a woman CEO, these girls are crying. Even these women are suppressing us. They tell me, it's just that I will never say their names, but they tell me, these women are suppressing us. They're supposed to be on our side, but these women, they still suppress us. They're supposed to support us, but these women that we believe they were supposed to be our mothers, our protectors, they make us feel that we're asking for wrong things.
Let's go to a break and then we'll come back to you, Mr. Mnyandu, as we get back into the discussion. We're discussing Banyana Banyana's recent refusal to take to the pitch over pay concerns, among other things. Stick with us. We'll continue the discussion after the break. Welcome back to Unfiltered. We're discussing Banyana Banyana and the gender pay gap in sports. Mr. Mnyandu, your finger is on the pulse of this question, and could you just give us a quick update in terms of the talks that have been going on between players, SAFA, and other third parties who've been trying to make a breakthrough as this World Cup is on our doorstep?
Yes, fortunately I'm from the team hotel now, and even though they couldn't speak to us and to me as member of the media there, because I understand there's a press conference tomorrow, but I understand that a breakthrough has been found.
Interesting.
Yes, so when the team leaves tomorrow, the first group of the team that leaves tomorrow, because they leave in two groups, tomorrow and Thursday, at least sanity has prevailed.
So we will have a team going off to
we will have and also a happy team. I think I should say that because things have not been going well, because besides not playing, the team has not trained for the past 2 days because of this dispute. So what we're getting now is that they've found each other, but one critical part, because you know that you were also supposed to have the players' union here. They've been left behind because they're continuing with the discussions, because the discussions now are not just about the players only, but also about the members of the support staff, because you will recall that in terms of the issues, the girls were saying, yes, FIFA has come up with this bonus scheme, and I think it's also important to give a bit of background to this bonus scheme. The bonus scheme came as a result of FIFPro, which is a global entity that is representing players, and what FIFPro did through its member unions, and in our case through SAFPO, they wrote a letter and they got 150 signatures from national team players, including Banyana Banyana players, and they sent this letter to FIFA calling for professionalization of this Women's World Cup.
What happened after that? And
then after that, we saw the results. What are the results? Is this new bonus scheme that they came up with. The 30 million USD Austria was talking about, guaranteed for players who are not going to go past the group stages, which I think in today's exchange rate it goes over 570,000 rands. And then on top of that, you then have, if they go past that, I think it's going to be 1.2 million rand. But now the other issue is that, and I understand where the players are coming from, is that they are saying, because each and every time you go to a tournament, there's a contract that is entered into between the players and the FA. So they're saying, get that, put it on a contract and say, we're going to get this money. And I think that tells you now in terms of there's issues also of mistrust about what maybe would have transpired in the past. And on top of that, they're also saying, top up, because this money is coming from FIFA direct. So what would be coming from the FA? And also this I learned also the past few days that this is not something unique to us, because this is also some of the problems that they're also having in the UK now, in terms of the English national team, that they also want something similar to that. But also now the problem is that these members of the support staff, they were going to get nothing as well, and I think this is one of the reasons why. And also you're referring me to the story that the country's breadwinner looks like he's came into the party.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard reporting from the Sunday Times that Patrice Motsepe, CAF president, has stepped in. Any truth to those suggestions?
I think I heard something like that, even though it was not official. But I think it's not just him. I think it's him and the minister, the government, in this case. And I think it's important that our government also starts to play a bigger role, because we saw when the team returned from Morocco as African champions, the government was now coming up with 15 million rands, which before they had not said anything about it.
Absolutely, and we've heard statements from the highest officers in government. Let's bring in Ms. Ledwaba on that question of the role of government in this funding question. Is government doing enough? And if not, what should they be doing?
Well, I think I remember during the Mbalula era, the HOD, the DDG then decided that he's going to be biased to women's sports, not necessarily football, but to women's events. That's where he's going to play a role. He's not going to play a role in any of men. They can go and find a sponsorship. So I'm saying, if Banyana Banyana were given 15 million rand by the South African government, did they even go back to SAFA and say how much did the girls receive from this 15 million rand? Because when government gives the girls, I saw another 5 million rand. That 5 million rand is for the girls. It's for the team, and the team includes the technical stuff, because I think we all forget that the team is made up of the players and the technical staff. So if the technical staff is not happy when they go to the World Cup, you can just imagine what the results are going to be. So for me, government can do more, can do more than that. But we are saying, I think I agree with what Velile is saying, that it is high time that the government takes a bigger role, you know, making sure that when there's an outcry there, where there are complaints there about the same association, about the girls every time when they go to tournament, they must start by fighting for their money. The government must come in there and investigate, not go and ask the same people and get no answer, or they get the answer they want them to hear. So I'm saying it is important. Then we have SASCOC. What is the role of SASCOC?
Before we go there, let's just bring in Ms. Modise on the wider question of government. What's your view on the discussion so far in terms of whether government has done enough to intervene, especially in this question of Banyana Banyana specifically?
To tell the honest truth, I feel they can do more. You know, like Ma'am Ria said, yes, as much as they put money, who's monitoring that money and making sure it's going to the right bank accounts? Because they just give money and they leave it there. So I believe our government, you know, they need to be involved. Like Ma'am Ria said, SASCOC needs to be involved in making sure we really help each other fully as a sport committee. It's not even about football, it's about all the sporting code, especially when we're going to such tournaments. It's not even about SAFA, it's about the country, you know, because we need to protect, you know, our problems to other countries. I do believe our government was going to be able to close this gap and make sure our girls, they go to the World Cup and present us with pride and squash these problems where they were going to deal with these problems later. So I think our government, they need to really play a big role to be involved and make sure they change that house. That house needs to go.
You know, many government officials have spoken up. The president has vocalized his view that he believes Banyana Banyana players should get more. The Minister of Sport recently said this is of great concern. So they're saying the right things. What more should be done? Or do you just think those are empty words when we haven't actually seen any tangible action? Let's stay with you, Ms. Modise, on this.
You know, the solution is easy. The contract that you used to have 1998 for Bafana Bafana when they went to the World Cup, just do a copy and paste, write Banyana Banyana on that contract, let the girls sign, then let the girls go and play with pride. There's one thing I know about our girls. With nothing, they'll give you the results. We've been in these problems, but we gave you the results. So this, for me, is not a problem. They must just do copy and paste. Our girls, they will be happy.
That's such an important point, you know, because Ms. Ledwaba, at the end of the day, the crux of this issue is the unfairness. And yes. I mean, when we look at Bafana Bafana, I think it's fair to say that their results over the last decade and a half have been, shall we say, less than stellar. While Banyana Banyana have been doing South Africans proud, and yet the pay is the exact opposite. Those who are winning championships, going to World Cups, are the ones on the wrong side of the pay gap. There's something wrong with that, is there not?
Yeah, there is. You must ask your question, is there any marketing company that has been employed by South African Football Association to go and look for sponsors for Banyana Banyana when they are performing so well? That's the question we must ask ourselves. Because indeed, Bafana Bafana will have those sponsors that comes to Bafana Bafana. That's why they will be getting all what they should be getting. But are we, as an association, making sure that we have a company? And remember, these companies, you don't pay them. You simply pay them on commission when they bring those sponsors. And there are so many companies that can go out there and be able, especially companies that are producing women's product. Have we even engaged with them to say we need support for our girls, you know, so that when they go there, they go there and perform, like Portia is saying. They've been performing. In fact, Bafana Bafana, the last trophy of Bafana Bafana is 27 years ago. 27 years ago, we have never seen a trophy of Bafana Bafana. We saw a trophy of the African champion from Banyana. But then we're still talking about, do they deserve to get this money? They deserve that 30,000 rand. It must be in their contract. It must be in their contract that they will fly business class, that they are not going to share the room when they get to New Zealand. And then SAFA received money for their qualification. Yes, South African Football Association need money too. But out of the money that they got for the qualification, they should be able to offer the girls and say, from us as the South African footballer, this is what we are putting on the table.
Absolutely.
Then I don't think there will be any issue whatsoever.
Mr. Mnyandu, how do you respond to some of the points that have been made about just the unfairness of the situation more broadly, and some of the concerns about the gap between Bafana and Banyana? I mean, if excellence is anything to go by, we've got Banyana players playing in the best leagues for brilliant teams, from Atletico to AC Milan. This is not about excellence. This is not about achievement, is it?
Yeah, and just to start on the issue of government, and I think this one, and it's something that I've tackled with the minister as well, to say, in South Africa, we talk. When we talk, we want to compete with the Britain, we want to compete with the US, we want to compete. And if you check, and Australia will know about this, here on the continent, we have most of, especially when it comes to football, most of these countries, the FAs, funded by government. The sports funding model in the country, I don't think it supports what us as journalists, us as that the general public would like to see.
How would you change it?
They need to change the sports model. Firstly, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture has got the smallest budget out of all the departments in government. There's just and
it's almost the department. If you have a scandal, we send a minister.
In fact, at SAFA, in terms of funding allocation, less than 2% of SAFA's budget they get something from government. So I think that's something. But the minister said they are going to tackle that with the president, and hopefully in the next budget vote speech, these are something that they'll be tackling. And coming to the issue of equality, we seriously have big problems. But there's a point that Ria raised here about the marketing, the commercial value, and also just yesterday we were at the launch of a new Bafana sponsor. You know, in the middle of this, there's a new Bafana sponsor, and this is around the time when, because this team is going to the World Cup, you would think that there's a drive within to go that. But critical to this is that SAFA has not had a commercial manager or something heading that space for the past 6 to 8 months now, since the previous one left. Now, this is a critical department. That we're talking about in the organogram of the association to drive what we're talking about in terms of marketing all the properties that would then lead to the space. And you know, I did last year I was just doing a study because I was studying, and I did a story on, in fact my research was based on the disparity in the media coverage of Banyana Banyana and the women's football, and how is that affecting gender parity.
And just at a high level, what is that disparity? Can you quantify the disparity?
We've got serious problems. We've got serious problems even from a media side. How we cover women's football and how we cover Banyana Banyana.
Absolutely.
And remember, the sponsors also come because of the numbers. Now, one of the problems we have as the media is that we only cover Banyana Banyana around big tournaments, and we cover them when there's controversy. And this also goes for women's football generally. And these are some of the things. And so for me, how I view this space is that government, SAFA, even us as the media, we are partly to blame in why we have this gap that we have, because for the corporate sector to come into the space, they also need to see the coverage of women's football also improving.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take up some of those questions. Ms. Modise, I see you nodding in terms of the way that Banyana Banyana is covered in media, to this question of only turning attention when there's controversy. Do you think that the media attention that has been given to Banyana Banyana is part of the problem here? And how do we begin to cover this in a way that moves us forward to greater equity?
I think Velile is right. They need to be blamed too as a media people, because it's what I always say, women's football is not Banyana Banyana. There's a feeder for Banyana Banyana, our clubs. So if we can start giving our clubs that opportunity to be watched, and media coverage that is so not even PSL, probably in Vela. So these players, they can be known from their clubs before they go to the national team. And women's football can be popular, could make sense to the clubs before it could go to the national team. Because now people believe that women's football is Banyana Banyana. No, Banyana Banyana is our national team. Then women's football is our club, our league. As much as we don't have a professional women's football, also that is a disadvantage for us to even go World Cup and perform better. Because now we have two groups. You have 7 that are playing overseas. Then you have 7, maybe almost a 19 that is playing the amateur football. Then every time when we have to meet in the national team, we all need to be professional. We all need to be in the same page. Now other players are being suppressed about the level of fitness. Now you tend to be tired. You get fatigued, because now this one are playing professionals, this one are playing amateur. Now we have 2 teams that you need to make one team. So I do believe, Guti, even our media, the way it's being covered, women's football, it's not enough.
Absolutely.
You still ask people from the street about the Banyana Banyana players, they can't even mention 5.
Yeah, let's go to a break, and we'll come back with some of those insights raised. Don't go anywhere. We're going to continue our discussion after this. We're talking Banyana Banyana, the gender pay gap, and broader equity in South Africa's sports landscape. Welcome back to Unfiltered. We're discussing Banyana Banyana and the gender pay gap in South African sport. Ms. Ledwaba, I want to take you up on a question of Mr. Mnyandu, a question of corporate South Africa, because we've spoken about the media and the different ways that we can cover this, not just focusing on moments of scandal, but also covering more consistently. But really, the people with the money also need to put their money where their mouth is on this. And maybe there's a problem with the patriarchy in South Africa's corporate world, and refusing to sponsor women's sports with the same urgency and passion when there's money flooding into the men's games on various fronts.
I think, Caesar, we are facing that situation. And if we are going to be talking about the numbers in terms of, when Bafana Bafana is playing on TV, there's 4 million viewers and all those things. So at what stage do we take serious the gender parity, and can we really be judging these 2 national teams based on who is bringing what in terms of viewership? So I just think that the corporate sector really needs to address this issue. But again, we also don't know in terms of because we've just spoken about how SAFA has not had a commercial manager or someone heading that space for 8 months. How do they approach at that space? And this is their reign as African champions. Are we then saying they've really been struggling to get a sponsor during this time. But I also know, especially with the Hollywood Bets Super League, which is the National Women's League now,
right,
here at home, there have also been complaints. For instance, I learned recently that they wanted to come into the space at Chiefs and Orlando Pirates, and SAFA wanted to increase the league to 18 teams. But one of the arguments that Chiefs is making is that there's Hollywood Bets here on the chest, there's Hollywood Bets on the sleeve, there's Hollywood Bets on the shorts. So we also have our sponsors if we were to come to the space. So how do you work around that? So it also means that there was something wrong in terms of negotiation. So you could find that there are more sponsors that want to come in. I've also heard in the past that there are sponsors who want to come into Banyana as well. But for those sponsors to come in, at first, Sasol must give approval. Now, when you look at what is happening at Bafana, it's different. You've got multiple sponsors there, and they are all clapping together, and there's more money for Banyana. So I think there is a link between SAFA being very weak in the commercial division, commercial and marketing division, but also we have a situation where we've got a corporate sector that is not taking women's football serious. And I think it doesn't just go for women's football only, but women in sport generally in this country.
Let's go to some of your comments from social media. Babako says, no, it does not, but enjoys the glory it comes with it. The governance of our football is not transparent and victimizes people who stand up against it, much like the current government who doesn't like criticism and accountability. And I think that's largely in the context of what we heard Ms. Modise saying earlier about feeling victimized when she spoke out. LC says, for as long as the current top structure of SAFA is in place, women's soccer will always be on the back burner. The reality is that Banyana Banyana achieved far more than their male counterparts. Women's soccer must be elevated and the recognition given it deserves. And let's go to one more. Zuvugile says, SAFA is taking Banyana Banyana serious when they talk in public, but behind the scenes is something opposite. SAFA is made up of selfish, stingy people. They, SAFA, behave like the money belonged to their family business. Yo, bazintloni. Ms. Modise, how do you respond to some of the tweets that have come through and some of those sentiments about SAFA, who, by the way, I must remind our audience, we did invite to this program and they declined our invitation. How do you respond to some of those views from social media?
No, I think they are right. I think they are right, but mostly I want to concentrate on what Velile was saying. To say,
sure,
corporate companies, they also need to come on board. I was very pissed that we're having a situation and SAFA is celebrating a sponsor. I'm even mad for that sponsor, which they don't respect us while we're trying to fix problems our country going to the World Cup. Or now they want to be announced as a sponsor as Bafana Bafana. That is disrespect. You know, I felt good. They were supposed to come to us because right now we are the most important people. We're going to the World Cup and we're having problems. You know, so for me, it's about corporate business. They need to really come on board. Also, this product of women, I think now they need to search themselves and see what really that they do for women generally in sport, because women are supporting their product, and if we're finding teams of women not getting supported while we buy this product, it's a shame for us as women. We need to learn how to support each other, because it starts with us. As much as we will always say men, they need to support us. Men are supporting each other and we see their game is growing. But what about us women? There's women who are owning businesses. There's women who are in power. What are they doing when they hear such situations?
Ms. Ledwaba, we've been discussing the corporate landscape and corporate sponsorship, and we've heard views that corporate South Africa also needs to step up to the plate. Yes, SAFA, yes, government, but ultimately those with the money to sponsor and fund sport are also feeding into this question of the inequalities that we see. What's your view on corporate South Africa's responsibility, and what burden do they bear for this inequity?
I do not have any doubt that corporate South Africa would want to support South African Football Association. They want to support football, but it's about the image. You know, every company that is out there, they want to associate themselves with the image of a particular organization. And I'll give a practical example. When we were interviewing for the CEO position, we had Pinjingila there coming to an interview with a sponsor in his pocket, and the sponsor was very clear that we are only going to give the sponsor if you are going to be appointed the CEO. And because he did not, because you see, the sponsor associate themselves with the person that they are trusting with their money to say, this person can change. We have seen this person go multi-choice. We have seen this person go Absagi, or now we have seen this person go. And the person comes and say, I'm available to change this organization and make it better. Somebody who has done it for many organizations, and he says, I am here telling the panel, I'm here, I've got a sponsor in my pocket, the sponsor that can actually pay my salary. And then comes the results, the panel says he's the best person for the position, and then we who would not even approach a sponsor ourselves, we come to the NEC and say, no, he's over 60, he cannot be able. Why did we interview that person in the first place? When you knew that when you are going to announce the result, that person will be 60 years old. So I'm saying SAFA has got so much opportunity to take the standard of football in this country to another level. We have hosted the World Cup. No other country has hosted the World Cup. But does it
We're going to have to round it off there. Absolutely. But we hear that point. I must also thank our panelists, Ms. Modise. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Mnyandu, as well. And of course, Ms. Ledwaba, for a fascinating conversation. A panoramic view of the question of gender inequality in our sports. We've looked at questions of corporate responsibility, SAFA's role, and also we as citizens, and how we continue to allow this question of the gender pay gap to perpetuate in our society. Are we being dribbled by the gender pay gap, and what can we do to resolve it? These are some of the questions that we've touched on. Looking forward to you continuing to join us on Unfiltered. Make sure you join us for the next installment, and have a good evening.